This week's show brought to you by SCAD, Scott Countyans Against Drugs. Welcome everybody to the Scott County Cardinals News Graphic Coaches Show, Week 8 edition, middle of the district schedule edition, kind of a mixed emotions edition. We'll get to that as a tough loss on Friday night on a lot of levels to Henry Clay. Ended a 10-game win streak over the Blue Devils. Key loss for the defense as Sam Daniel is lost for the season with a right knee injury. It's going to require surgery and a long rehab. And just the way that it happened, a lot of just a tough spot. 27-17 lead the Cardinals had in the second quarter, but you could see things were trending in a bad direction. One drive right before the half didn't pan out the way the Cards wanted. It was really the only time that Henry Clay stopped them in the first half, but the problem was Scott County wasn't able to stop Raymond Jackson, the talented Henry Clay receiver, or quarterback DJ Van Horn, as they both ran and threw for whatever they wanted to most of the night. Henry Clay took the lead early in the third quarter and just poured it on. They scored the final 34 points, did the Devils, on the way to the big win at Toyota Stadium. Puts the Cards at 5-2 and 1-1 in the district, and that's significant because big game this Friday night at Frederick Douglass, undefeated Frederick Douglass, ranked in most quarters number 2 in the state in Class 6A right now, mostly because of that record. Cards kind of have to go on the road and win that one. If they don't, they're looking at a third place finish in the district and a 3 seed in the playoffs, which generally means you're going to go on the road in the first round, possibly the second round, and almost definitely the third round. So going forward for the goals that the Cards are setting in November, this is a big game coming up this Friday night in Lexington. Let's talk a little bit about that game, as Frederick Douglass has run over its competition both in the district and outside. Now, a lot of people probably questioning the strength of schedule outside the district, and compared to Scott County is no comparison really. As you know, you look at the teams that Scott County played. Highlands, which is highly ranked in 5A, LaSalle, Moeller, the teams from Cincinnati. Scott County really pushed itself, and Frederick Douglass not so much. I think they kind of played the teams that were available to them, as they had to put that schedule together last year and this year, kind of on a 2-year cycle. And as a new school, you kind of get what's left over, I think, in a lot of cases. So they've made do with it. They've put up some big numbers offensively at the quarterback position. Very well equipped there with a 6'8" passer who's committed to the University of Cincinnati, transfer from down in the southeast part of the state. And then just a bunch of skill position players that were there last year, receivers and backs that are give them a tough look. They're tough to defend, and with the situation Scott County's in right now, with Sam Daniel out, with Peyton Brown really not playing on defense much, a freshman has been starting back there in Jeremy Hamilton. It's going to be a difficult assignment for the Cards this week as they look to stop one of the most prolific offenses in the state. The good news is the running game for Scott County really had no problems on Friday night. All 3 running backs were over 100 yards in the first half against Henry Clay. So as we said, the Devils didn't really do anything to stop the Cards. The Cards kind of stopped themselves, and then once Henry Clay got the lead, you could see a lot of kind of a whirlwind of emotions on the sidelines. A lot of, I'll say it, negative energy. But the Cards have got to overcome this week. If they get behind, they can't act like it's the end of the world. They just got to focus on the next play. I know Coach McKee has dwelled on that a lot this season, and he'll probably talk about it in his comments as well. This is a program that hasn't been in a position with being behind much against these Lexington opponents. They've dominated. I think I read 49-4 their record over the past 10 years until that Henry Clay game, and 3 of those losses were to Lafayette just in the last couple of years. So they've really owned the district teams since the turn of the decade. Not a spot they've been in very often, and sometimes it's hard to focus emotionally when you haven't been in that spot. But the Cards really need to bounce back and do that. Probably need to score a lot of points. And last year's success against Douglass out of that wing tee, Douglass had trouble stopping. They had trouble seeing who had the ball a lot of times as well. So you can expect Austin Barnett, Bronson Brown, Peyton Brown to rack up the yards. But Cards have got to minimize turnovers, can't afford to fumble it, can't afford to get in negative down and distance situations. this is a game they can win on the road, and if they do, it will throw things for a major tizzy in the district standings. You'd have 3 teams with 1 loss, and a lot of tiebreakers will come into effect down the road. And after this, Dunbar and PRP, pretty good reason to think that Scott County is going to run the table going into the playoffs. So if they can win this game on Friday night, could set them up with some big momentum. But we'll see a lot about this team and learn a lot about this team, how they react, how they respond to a loss, how they deal with some missing pieces on defense, maybe some disciplinary actions as well with a couple of players that may further soften that defense a little bit. So some people that haven't had to step up are going to be in a big spot on Friday night, and we'll see how the Cardinals react. We talked, this is fall break week, so we've kind of left the players alone. A little different schedule, a little different dynamic. They practice in the morning this week. So we spoke at length with Coach McKee. He's going to be the only guest this week. Obviously, he's a guy that's been through ups and downs. He's more used to tough losses than the players are. Let's see what he had to say about the Henry Clay game and what it means for Friday night's assignment at Douglas.
Coach McKee emphasized that Henry Clay won Friday's game as much as Scott County lost it.
Well, I think the first thing that happens is, you know, when we lose a game or two, you know, you get a lot of the old adage, what happened? And I guess it's a positive in that we have created such a culture that nobody expects us to ever lose. But when you do lose, I think we're real quick to place blame on, well, you know, we should have done this, we should have done that, and not near quick enough to give credit. And I really thought that Van Horn played great. He played out of his mind, and number 1, Jackson played. I thought that's as good a football game, complete football game, played against us as anybody's played in a long, long time. Now, is he the best football player that we've seen this year, whatever? Well, maybe not. Is he the most complete? Absolutely. And, you know, we've beaten them 10 times in a row. They have a lot of pride, and, you know, they played great, and it had nothing to do with us not being ready, or they just outplayed us.
Sam Daniels' injury is the second major hit for the Cardinals' starting lineup this year.
Hate it. You know, and I mean, I don't know how this sounds, because I would want everybody that has ever coached to agree with me, and I think they would. Nobody wants to see anybody get hurt, okay? But it double breaks your heart when the kid that gets hurt is a kid that does everything right. And, you know, the 2 guys that have had season-ending injuries for us that are starters this year, Philip Garner and Sam Daniel, they do everything right. And, you know, they make good grades in the school. Their parents support the coaches. You know, today's a little bit of a different generation. I don't know if you see it in newspaper reporting, but, you know, even when you're winning or doing well, and I say, now, Cal, listen, on that article, the lead in, and before I can finish my sentence, here comes something by. Well, now, Coach, the blitz, just be quiet and take coaching. Don't question the coaching. And those guys are that old school mentality. You know, both their dads played high school football. Both of them have grown, they're Cade's age exactly. So, you know, I was arguing with Roger and old man Garner down there when they were 9 and 10 years old coaching Little League against each other. And, you know, I just hate it for kids that do everything right. Now, the good news is Philip is doing great. Even an outside chance, I think he'll be back in the playoffs. And Sam will have his surgery next Thursday, and he'll be 100% in July. But you know, there are no excuses because everybody deals with injuries. But, I mean, obviously it was 14-3 when he went out. And, you know, he's kind of the quarterback of what we're doing in the secondary.
The focus turns to another talented Lexington opponent this week.
The good news is for me, we've been on fall break, and I, you know, I will get on Twitter sometimes and tweet some stuff to promote the program, but you know, any other kind of social media I pretty much am off of, and so I've really been locked in. I haven't even been on my phone to answer my stuff, and so it's fun, and I have great respect, and that's the thing. I never try to point toward one game. I've been playing and coaching against the city teams for so long to know that they're going to have a Raymond Jackson, a Jalen Burbage. You know, Henry Clay's had so many good players in the past, and you know, Douglas has a lot of really good skill guys. You got to be ready every night. I mean, if you think about the strengths and the weaknesses of our team, you got to be frank and honest. You know, we have a little bit of a hard time dealing with a whole lot of speed because we don't have a whole lot of speed. Now, if you try to power us, you got luck.
Scott County will try to control the clock and use its offense as a first line of defense Friday night.
You know, I mean, we're going to try to run the football for a couple reasons. I mean, you know, number one, it's what we do. And just like last Friday night, you know, Clay was in the box. He said, you know, I think we got him on this pass. I think we got him on that pass. And I just said, you know, in the first half, I said, Clay, right now what we want to do is just control the ball. Let's control the ball and keep their speedy guys on the sideline. And, you know, what we've got to be able to do a better job of is we have failed in what's called the drive extender plays. And, you know, when we get to 3rd and 9 the other night or the 4th and 7, you know, we've missed on the drive extender plays. And then we can't hold. And I mean, and we got to be smarter. And the couple holding calls that we had on us, I mean, you got to call them. They're out in space. Their backs grabbing defenders out in front of the officials. Now, when you're from tackle to tackle, you pretty much got to tackle somebody to get called for holding. But when you're out in space and the opposing coach can see it and he can scream, "That's a hold on Oaks!" you're going to get it. So we got to be a little bit smarter, and we got to hit our drive extender plays.
A lack of discipline hurt the Cardinals against Henry Clay and would be just as difficult to overcome this week.
That's bad for us, and we got that way because of penalties. And, you know, we obviously got to be smarter. We had 13 penalties, which is ridiculous. We had 3 personal fouls on the drive that gave them the 2-score lead. I mean, that's silliness. You know, we can't do that, and we got to be more mature. And that's a little bit of our guys panicking a little bit because we were in a close game late in the second half with a team we thought we would defeat easily.